Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! And last time, we were about to begin the summation examination. All the jurors kind of were, kind of is the wrong word. They were against us. They did not judge in our favor and wanted to have Mr. McGlide guilty. But we have a very clever assistant who knows that there is the opportunity for the defense to take a summation examination. And in this episode, we are going to assert our right, of course, and go for the summation examination, find out what it actually is, and then go with that. So let's get started. The defense wishes to assert its right to summation examination, my lord.
Objection!
London is the capital city of the most powerful nation on earth. We have a duty to the world to exemplify the very highest standards of judicial procedure. Summation examinations are an embarrassment that should remain buried.
Objection!
But if it's alright, it's alright. I believe it could prove vital in this trial. The defense's petition is perfectly valid. The court will proceed with a summation examination. This is madness. Foreman, are you and the remainder of the jury ready?
Yeah, I'm not, there was no mention of this in the letter I received, you see, so...
All members of the jury will be asked to explain on what grounds they have reached their decision.
On what grounds?
You must all justify your decisions and explain why you believe the defendant to be guilty.
Well, my lord, you're rather putting us on the spot. This is most irregular. No mention was made of this before. I don't really hold with all of this justifying lark.
That seems to have thrown the jurors off. It seems none of them have experienced this before. Alright then, the summation examination. A defense procedure no practicing lawyer has attempted for years, is it? Well, just maybe, it might be the opportunity we have been looking for to turn this trial around. So be it then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant Magnus McGildet guilty of this most serious crime. Judicial findings. Okay, the jurors' contentions.
There was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him.
I trust the driver. He has an excellent memory. It seems 4 passengers with fares totaling 20 pence.
He stuck the chap next to him just like this. Brazen, I must say, absolutely brazen.
I have simply typed and collated all the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusion.
You can't trust the guild. Fair fares is our motto. We haven't raised prices above 4 pence for years. This scoundrel stabbing that poor man on the floor. It beggars belief.
Okay. I'm starting to wish I hadn't pushed this for this now. Some of the jurors don't seem to have wonderfully formed arguments though, do they? Well, let's see what we can do. We need to get these 6 people to change their minds. I'll have to throw everything I can at them and use some very persuasive language. Just a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. According to my book, that's not quite how it works. Oh, I thought I was going to have to thaw their icy minds with some heartwarming rhetoric about defendant. Unfortunately, once the jurors have decided the defendant is guilty, they're unlikely to heed anything the defense says. But then they've reached their conclusions by their own reasoning, you see. Your pleas will sound like excuses. In fact, it could recoil on you. The more you try to persuade them, the more entrenched they may become. Then what on earth am I supposed to do? Oh dear, I'm just citing what I've read about British law, Mr. Naruhodo. Right, I'm sorry. Do you have any idea how to make this work then? Well, from what I can understand, the key to this procedure is using the jurors' own words to make your arguments. What do you mean? Well, the 6 members of the jury are randomly selected members of the public. They may appear to be present a united front, but the truth is, they are complete strangers who just happen to find themselves here in the courtroom together. And that's the way to break them down, you mean? Yes, exactly. We must listen very carefully to what each member of the jury says, and see if we can identify any contradictory statements. If we can, we then contrast the statements and pit the corresponding jurors against each other. Oh, that's interesting. I see, so it's contradictions in what 2 or more jurors say that we're looking for. In a way then, this is similar to a regular cross-examination. Oh, yes, I suppose you're right. Find contradictions in their statements and pit the jurors against one another to break them down. Alright, I might be able to pull this off. No, that's not right. I have to pull this off. Can we start the proceedings, counsel? I would ask you to take a stand for this. I'm expecting a clear and concise rebuttal. Yes, my lord. Jury examination. Okay. The defense's rebuttal.
There was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him.
Let's press him. Certainly, the testimony of his words suggests the victim and Mr. Gill were alone inside the carriage.
Precisely my point.
But could there be some other explanation, something we haven't considered yet?
Such as?
Perhaps that's something we could, all work out together now?
Now listen here, maybe you don't know how things work around here because you're from foreign climes. But we're here to form our opinion as individuals, and I have.
Oh dear, he doesn't appear to be in the mood to consider an alternative point of view, does he? No, I'm going to have to pit the jurors against one another, like Susato-san said. Finding contradictions in these 6 people's assertions is the only way I'm going to succeed. Okay, I'm still going to press. Just to be sure, so he says they were the only ones. And she says, I trust the driver. He has an excellent memory. It seems 4 passengers with fares totaling 20 pence. We're gonna press that too. But does his ability to recall his takings that night really tell us how trustworthy the man is? I manage all his lordship's cash affairs, so I'm very particular when it comes to accounts. I see. A single penny can mean the difference between life and death after all, can't it? That's saying in your country? My point is, a man who minds his figures is a man you can trust. Those of us in service would swear to that, sir. Does that bench really need any more polishing? So if the good driver says that he saw Mr. McGill in that act, I don't doubt him. The only task left to do today is disposing of the rubbish. Oh, now wait a minute. One of the other jurors mentioned something about money, I think. Now would be a very good time to listen carefully to the jurors' statements again, Mr. Naruto. If you notice any inconsistency in what 2 different jurors are saying, I should expose it by pitting them against each other. Yes, let's see if I can do just that.
He stuck the chap next to him just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolute brazen.
Okay, just to be clear. 4 passengers, 20 pence. Driver has an excellent memory. We're gonna press this boy, this guy, right? Careful, you could hurt somebody with that.
You're a fine one to talk. What of the sword hanging from your waist, huh?
No, that's just my battered soul.
Well, anyway, I despise anyone with too much money. They're all the same, all stabbing some brickmaker or other behind the scenes, you mark my words.
That seems very unlikely, doesn't it?
Are you mad, man? We know that small shorty's a rotten Shylock.
Well, yes, that does seem to be the case, but... Mr. Naruto, please, be careful what you say.
If he's been trying to squeeze money out of us less fortunate, then as far as I'm concerned, he's as guilty as a sin. The man can hang.
Come to think of it, didn't one of the other jurors have something to say about the defendant's underhand activities? You've thought of something, Mr. Naruto. Don't let it go. Test your theory. Pit the two jurors whose statements seem to be contradictory against each other. No time like this to use art to pit them against each other, or I'll never get anywhere. Okay, but he is not the one to be pitted against, or to be pit against? I don't know what the form is. 20 pence? Just a second. So, next to him like this. Okay, so he says it's about money, and she says it's about money, so they might be actually a pair. Let's see what she has to say.
I've simply typed and collated all the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusion.
Okay, so let's press her. What have you been doing all this time?
What have you been doing all this time? There.
I should have thought it was obvious. I'm recording everything that takes place as part of these proceedings. And what have you learned from that? For example, at this moment in time, the judge has used his gavel 11 times in total. The prosecution has snorted derisively at your remarks 7 times in total. And, I might add, each time you have gawped like a simpleton. Thank you. And what's the point exactly? So anyway, madam, are you able to explain why you think the defendant is guilty? That is a conclusion I have drawn as a result of the copious notes I have typed. Clearly, but I'm asking you to explain why you've drawn that conclusion. Please don't distract me. It makes it extremely hard to concentrate on my note keeping. This is going nowhere.
You can trust the guild. Fair fares is our motto. We haven't raised prices above 4 pence for years.
Okay, so before I press him, okay, 4 times 5. So these two, number 2 and number 4, are to be pitted against each other. Okay, good to know.
You can trust the guild, blah blah blah.
Okay, let's just press. That's how much it costs to take the omnibus? Omnibus?
That's right. As the guildmaster, I decided to set a policy for all drivers across the city. One fare no matter which bus you take, how far you're going. We have to compete with the rise of the motor car, you see. Us coachmen have to make a stand together.
Motor cars, you say?
Yes, and this murder on one of our buses is extremely damaging to our cause. It's beyond the pale. It led to a decline in passengers, you mark my words, and it's all that rascal's fault. He has to pay.
Is it the crime or his bosses he's more worried about?
Anyway, every member of my guild is reliable and trustworthy. So if the driver says he saw him do it, that fellow in the dock is guilty as sin. The scoundrel stabbing that poor man on the floor beggars belief.
Hold it! You gonna press her? I really think I should stop waving that... You should stop waving that needle around.
You heard what the good coachman said before, didn't you? That hideous man stabbed the poor fellow, just like this.
Yes, that is what he said, you're right.
McGelded Park is such a lovely little place too. I've always enjoyed resting my legs there while I get on with my knitting. And I had thought that anyone who donated such a delightful place must be a fine fellow indeed. I suppose I was wrong. Whoever would have thought he was a miserable, murdering moneylender with not a scrap of remorse?
Oh, help! She's as sure can be that he's guilty now. The old lady certainly seems to know her mind, doesn't she? So we just need to find two jurors with contradictory statements and pit them against each other. Which is much easier said than done. Is that perhaps what you were just thinking? How did you know? Well, I took the liberty of doing some research in case you happen to find yourself in just such a situation. Shall I read you for what I found out? It's a little long, I'm afraid. We want to see all the dialogue, right? So please go ahead. Very well. Listen to this. During this summation examination, you will hear the assertions of 6 members of the jury. In this situation, the counsel for the defense should use armpit wire with impunity. Having done so, you will be able to compare the chosen assertions with those of the other jurors. Select the corresponding buttons to listen to the other jurors' assertions again. Note that you cannot choose the assertion of the juror you initially selected, nor can you choose assertions of jurors who have changed their leaning to not guilty already. Once you've compared the various jurors' assertions, work out which two contradict each other and then pit them together with R to pull them apart. I see. She wasn't joking when she said it was long. The first step is to listen very carefully to what each individual juror has to say. Then I'm sure you'll start to see which ones might not quite agree with each other. Alright then. Let's get this right now, so I never have to listen to that long and boring explanation again. That's the spirit. Oh, this is so great. Okay, so we are going to pit this young lady with him. Let's go. Those two statements clearly contradict each other. They do? Explain yourself, counsel. Me? Oh dear, what have I said? I swear on Silverblazer's maiden name, I haven't the first idea what you're talking about. According to the group testimony we've heard though so far, there were 4 passengers on the omnibus on the night in question. And according to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Quite right, I have those precise details typed neatly here in front of me. And juror number 5 also told us the following. The fare for the omnibus is always 4 pence. That it is, a fair and convenient single price, just the way London's carriage should be operated. But that doesn't add up at all. In fact, it leaves a glaring discrepancy in the facts. Why, man, why? 4 passengers paying 4 pence each if you do the multiplication. Ah, it would be 16 pence. Exactly. As I said, it doesn't add up. The figures are different. By 4 pence in fact, or precisely 1 person's fare. 1 person's fare? Yes, in other words, on the omnibus that night. It's distinctly possible. There was another passenger we've heard nothing about. Good gracious! This can't be right! The coachman of the guild are good, honest men, one and all. Trustworthiness is our watchword. These figures your coachman claims most certainly do not add up. Your watchword, good sir, is a fallacy. I beg your pardon? Mr. Guildmaster, I think you ought to consider that if this trial were to end now, the news will surely spread all over London. The news that one of your coachmen tried to hide the fact that he lets nefarious characters ride his omnibus. Alright then, how do I make it so this miserable trial doesn't end, huh? Well, according to my book here, you simply launch a ball of fire onto the innocent side of the set of scales. Now, hold your horses there, coachman! We were all in agreement. Why do you have to go and... Wait till I get my hands on you, Beppo! Oh, this is all very irritating. Begging your pardon, sir, I'm going to do the same. For the love of Mike, not you as well. A penny can be the difference between a smile and a tear after all. I certainly can't put my trust in someone who doesn't follow my exacting standards in financial matters. Oh, really? I, for one, think it's only proper that we hear from the witnesses again. Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. You did it! If we can manage to change 2 more jurors' minds, we can force the trial to continue. 2 more. Actually, there's something else that's bothering me about a couple of their assertions. Then that's where you must strike next. So I need to pit 2 more jurors against each other and show there's another contradiction in their assertions. Exactly. You can do it. Well, the scales of the justice have shifted, but they still weigh heavy on the side of guilt. Counsel, you have the floor again. Continue with the summation examination. Okay, so these 2 are already done for. Let's press him again. Careful, could hurt somebody. Tsuki, you're a fine one to talk. Hanging from your waist, huh? No, that's just my battered soul. Well, anyway, despise anyone with too much money. They're all the same, all stabbing some brickmaker or behind the scenes. You mark my words. That seems very unlikely. Are you mad, man? We know that small shorties are rotten Shylock. Okay, squeeze money out of us. Is a guilty as sin, the man can hang. Okay, so he is to be pitted against someone else. Hold it! Okay, but she just... what have you been doing? She has been typing and recording everything. Yes. Simpleton, we don't care about that. This is a conclusion. And she says, makes me hardly... Okay, so she won't tell. He said already. And she says... Hold it! You heard what the good man did, didn't you? Stab the poor fellow just like this. Such a dilemma. Must be a fine fellow indeed. What do you think, Mr. Na? Okay, if you have something new to say, then please go ahead. Very well, listen to this. Ah, okay, no, we had this already. I'm just gonna skip it. Sorry, guys. We had this already. We're just gonna skip it. Takes a little while. Sorry for that. I'm going to press him once more. Hold it! So just alone in the carriage. Precisely. But could there be some other explanation? Something I haven't considered yet? Together. He has forged an opinion. Okay, so he has forged his opinion. There was no one else. I am going to pit him against her because she thinks he's a fine man. So let's do that. Apparently I was right. Okay, those 2 statements are completely contradictory. What? Explain, Counsel, post haste.
Oh, dearie me, I was only knitting a jumper for my other half.
What is all this claptrap? What does contradictory even mean, I ask you? We've heard from more than one witness that they all allegedly saw the actual moment when the defendant stabbed the victim. Now, out of curiosity, juror number 3.
What? Can't you see that I'm busy here?
How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim? What sort of motion was it?
Ha! Want to test me, do you? Was like this.
Okay, this movement is different from hers. Okay.
Stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up, just like the prim banker said.
Yes, that was Mr. Fairplay's testimony. Quite true. Now then, juror number 6.
Oh, is that me, is it? What can I do for you, young man?
How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim, madam?
Oh, well, dear, as far as I understand it, it was like this. He stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. The coachman said so.
Now don't move. Take a look at these 2 jurors. He stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up. And he stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. Well, I never. They're stabbing in total different directions.
What? Bless my stitches! What a muddle!
What this tells us is that there's a strong possibility one of the witnesses isn't telling the truth.
Oh! But why? Why the dickens would they lie?
I don't know that yet, but what I do know is that if the trial ends at this point, we may never find out. We may never know the real truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, can you really let that happen in all good conscience?
Lies, you say? Oh, dearie me. I can't abide people telling lies.
The scales! I don't believe
it.
Wait! Now hear this, my fellow jurors. I warn you, you cannot listen to this man. Look at him. In his black suit, he's clearly some devious Eastern sorcerer using magic on us all. If I could use magic, do you really think I'd be putting myself through all this? Answer me this, Doc Jinx. Me? What exactly is the problem? What of it if 2 witnesses have slightly different recollections of events? What of it? Let's say the Shylock did stab the victim as he was sat next to him on the omnibus. And this young dandy saw him do it. And now let's say the victim collapsed on the floor and then the Shylock stabbed him again. And this old lady saw him do it. Well, what's to say it didn't happen like that, huh?
Who are you calling a dandy, sir? Why I should take this knife to you? Who are you calling old? Why I should take this needle to you?
They're ready to kill each other now. But could the foreman of the jury be right? Did the 2 witnesses see 2 different moments of the same crime? But it's out of the question, and I will explain why. Because there is only this. He sat on the floor. He sat on a seat. There is no way he could have fallen on the floor. So that's how they found him. That he never was on the floor. So it's out of the question. Unfortunately, Mr. Foreman. What is it, you Dark Jinx? Come on, out with it! What you're suggesting is impossible. It's out of the question. What? What are you talking about, man? How can you possibly say that? You do realize that I'm only doing my job. As foreman of the jury, I have a responsibility to steer everyone in the right direction. So where's your evidence, man? That's what we want to see. They say the 2 witnesses saw 2 different moments of the same crime. If you say that's out of the question, show me some proof. Looks like the only way I'm going to convince him is to present him with something he can't dismiss. Some irrefutable hard evidence. As you wish. What? I'll give you the proof. It's out of the question that the 2 witnesses saw 2 different moments of the same crime as proven by, and I'm going with a photograph. Because the autopsy report only states that... okay, yeah, it must... Okay, then it's the autopsy report because it states stab once in the abdomen. So it must be this. I almost made a mistake here. Yeah, it must be this. So let's present the report then. This is the victim's autopsy report. According to what's written here, Mr. Mason was stabbed in the abdomen only once. Only once? It's quite simple. The victim was stabbed precisely one time. Which means these witnesses can't possibly have seen it happen 2 different times.
Alright, I concede defeat.
Wait, that means 4 jurors are now leaning to not guilty. We've done it, Mr. Naruto. We've won! I doubt that. Susato-san, I really doubt that. What are you playing at, you dandy fool?
Shut your trap, sir. No one deceives me.
But we had a consensus.
I said shut your trap. I know a liar when I see one. And if the chap ever dares to cross the threshold of my shop, I'll take his razor-sharp blade and shave every last hair off his head.
Please tell me he's a barber. Well, in a quite remarkable turn if he wins, the defense's summation examination has flipped the balance of the scales of justice. The jurors now stand at 2 for guilty and 4 for not guilty. Accordingly, there is no longer a large enough majority among the jury for me to adjudicate, and the trial must continue. I hereby ask the defense, prosecution, and witnesses to return to their places, and I call upon all of you to continue to pursue the truth. Alright guys, we actually did it. We flipped things around. And that's for it for this episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles.